It's AI. It doesn't say Gen AI.
Okay.
So I think AI can make a difference to every business. Gen AI, maybe not. Communication, education, training, and then access. This was in the late 80s. It was mostly about natural language understanding, natural language generation. A lot of work in breaking down sentences, nouns, verbs, context. An employee sent me a note just the other day saying, oh my gosh, this one exploded with boards. There are certain industries that will be disrupted. I think writers, education. I'm not sure banking will get disrupted by Gen AI, but I think there's other creative industries could be disrupted. Right now, this is the most unusual meeting I've had, being recorded by Azim in my office.
Can you tell what it's written on here?
Is it the same as what's on the back? The new 8 to cloud. On artificial intelligence.
It's articulated.
I said articulated intelligence.
So 7 people I've showed, they said or read it as artificial intelligence. So this is like a cards of humanity, and there are like 4 categories. Fill in the blank, true or false, make connections, and introduce yourself. So each one of us will pick a card and then read it out loud, and then we'll answer that question or make a conversation along those lines. All right. So I'm going to let you pick one first.
True or false seems the easiest.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong. AI is transforming every department in a business. True.
Is there any business that's not going to transform?
It's AI. It doesn't say Gen AI.
Okay.
So I think AI can make a difference to every business. Gen AI, maybe not.
That's a great answer. How can we ensure that benefits of AI are shared by all members of society? I would say if you learn something new about AI, tell more people, share knowledge in documentation, create videos, put it out in the public community so people can benefit from it. What do you think?
I think 2 things: communication, education, training, and then access, making sure all members of society have access to it, which I think the internet has helped. I think mobile phones have helped.
Okay.
I think open source has helped.
Yeah.
ChatGPT has made it available for free for a certain part. So I think it's making sure people understand it and understand what they can do with it, but then making it more accessible.
Since we are talking about AI, you've done masters in artificial intelligence 25 years ago.
Don't say that, but yes.
What do you think AI was at the time? What do you think AI is today?
So, AI is, when I was in, it was in this, what they would call the second wave of AI, right? And this was in the late 80s. It was mostly about natural language understanding, natural language generation. A lot of work in breaking down sentences, nouns, verbs, context. And then you saw that become available in Siri and Alexa, and everybody takes it for granted now. You talk to your phone, you talk to Alexa, you talk to Siri, you talk to your car. So that, I think, was that generation. What's unique about Gen AI now is it's generation capable. Like, it's called generative AI. So what people are amazed on is that it can generate language, it can generate lyrics, it can generate pictures. Before, I was just trying to understand words and sentences, but we take that for granted. I think so many people take for granted that they can talk to Alexa, and there's so much code behind that, just that. And now it is even as much as and we've talked about this, understand AI and machine learning or neural networks and patterns. It blows me away how fast it can generate, and its creative style. Even though it's not really creative, it appears to be creative.
Was this something that's coming, or at least the ones in the industry knew that it's going to come, like the way how we are seeing?
No, I don't think they saw it coming. I think the transformer technology, someone created, and I think they were quite surprised at what it could do, right? And then it took off in some of the deep learning in the Google DeepMind, or, I think they had access to it, but I think they were really amazed when they saw what it could do, and then it exploded, and everybody said, holy cow. Now, do I think this is the last step? Every time you think you've reached the next peak, somebody pushes it farther. But it's an interesting step. I think people forget that we've been doing AI for a lot longer than Gen AI, and I think they get it mixed up sometimes. But the generative aspect is interesting.
Do you think the hype for AI, generative AI, is different than the hypes that we had for the other tech types in the past?
Yeah, I think it's very different, because most of the other hype cycles, if you go to Gartner hype cycles, were hype cycles inside the tech community, right? So it was a hype cycle on blockchain. It was a hype cycle on RPAs. RPA was going to take over the world. Like, bots were going to be everywhere. This one exploded with boards. Everybody had access to it. So it wasn't just a tech thing. And that's one of the things I find interesting is we've had to give our executive team education on Gen AI. We had to give the board of KeyBank education on Gen AI. They never asked for education on AI. Well, they felt like AI is for that quant team over there. They took where AI.
Conventionally.
Yeah, I mean, like they were never going to get their hands on machine learning, but now they have their hands on Gen AI, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, how do I use Gen AI to do my job?" And so that to me is a big change where it spreads so fast. Almost. You go back to mobile phones, or when you put it in the hands of consumers, then you're talking about really wide scale. Yeah. Push for it. And that's what happened. Like the boards want to know how to use it. They never asked about robotic process automation, right?
Or big data or
Or
machine.
Hadoop. They never said, can you give us education on how Hadoop works or how large scale computing works or how scale out computing works? It was like, oh, that's for the tech guys. Yeah. But huge push for, board members and executives to say, what does this mean? So it is I feel it is a different hype cycle than I've seen. I'll try another fill in the blank. AI will make blank better for my team. I think for my team, the biggest benefit would be coding.
Okay.
I think the coding benefits is worth probably 67% of the team does coding. So I do think coding, a former employee sent me a note just the other day saying, oh my gosh, what would have taken me 2 to 3 hours, I did in 10 minutes. And it was complex coding. And even me who coded a long time ago, I'm like, I think I could get back into coding.
That's like, okay, I don't want to solve simple problems. Let the AI solve simple problems and I'll take care of complex problems.
That was about time.
Okay. One thing you wish you knew about AI. I wish if I had known that NVIDIA is the thing behind all the AI burst right now, maybe I would have put a lot of
Your money out
all my money into it
5 years ago.
But that is something that I wish I knew this.
I could say that about NVIDIA also. You could say that about some other companies and trends took off, right? But I shared with my team at a town hall cartoon, and it goes back to the gold days, when people were hunting for gold, and it was like the people that made the most money are the people that sold picks and shovels to people who are hunting for gold. And NVIDIA is selling the picks and shovels and making a lot of money. I think Google, Amazon, Microsoft are trying to figure out how to make money because they're spending so much money to get the infrastructure. They got to eventually, someone's going to pay for that, right? Yeah. And I think that's what our executives are afraid of. When will, the piper start charging us for anything, right? Everybody needs they're all buying the chips, but somebody's got to pay for them. It's got to get passed down to us. Most people are excited about the possibilities of AI. I think that's not true because the legal team and our compliance and our, some of our model risk team aren't as excited. I think they're lukewarm excited, but looking at the what ifs and the possible risks. I think there's always the risk of there's a risk that people should be aware of not going forward. Like there's a risk of standing still. Yeah. There's certainly risks of using it. I think their job is to protect the company, and they're trying to do that. So I think they're more cautious about AI than everybody being super excited.
Do you think the benefits outweigh the risks with AI?
It depends on the use case, right? Yeah. I think there's certain use cases that the risk would be higher than the benefit. Yeah. There's lots of. I think the challenge for a lot of people now is that, yes, it'll make your job easier, it'll make mine. Does that translate to bottom line savings for the company? And how much are we paying to make you more productive? And that's where we're getting those kinds of questions. I think I'm still waiting to see the Airbnb disruptor, the Uber disruptor, someone who uses Gen AI in conjunction with other technologies to disrupt an industry. There are certain industries that will be disrupted. I think writers, education. I'm not sure banking will get disrupted by Gen AI, but I think there's other creative industries could be disrupted.
There's one I've seen closely. It's this company called Chegg. After ChatGPT, exponentially went down. It was $1 billion company. It's probably 100 million worth.
That's where I think there's so much resistance to disrupting the educational industry. It'll happen, but it's not going to happen easily. But I do think you can have personal tutors. You can have, it could teach you how to code. It could teach you how to write. It could teach you history. The interesting thing is it has read everything known. Now, the question is, some of what's written isn't accurate and some of it is, and that's where people get concerned with hallucination. Meaning it doesn't know the difference of whether it was authentic or not. People just have to understand. It is interesting. Like I've asked Clevelanders who've lived there their whole life. Like 20 years ago, there was a fire on a boat down by the Cuyahoga River. What year did that happen? It came back and it said it happened in this year. Wow. There was a boat because it read it. It has access to it. It amazes me how it has that indexing that knowledge so fast that
So
it's
far.
clear. When I asked it, there was a bar that was only open 1 year. It was at the old Coast Guard station at the mouth of the river, open 1 year, like in the 80s. Came back and said the name of the bar.
Wow.
Right? Just because it read the newspaper articles about it and everything else, so it has access, right?
Yeah. That's insane.
I think that's the thing people have to understand. It has read everything. So how do you take advantage of that? How do you use that knowledge that no human could ever remember?
An interesting thing is that's the assumption whatever that it read and whatever that is preserved so far is accurate. Whatever that is generated now could be garbage and the models will be trained on this garbage. 10 years from now, people are using the generative AI solution like a chat. They probably get responses which are trained on garbage information. So we probably are in the best spot to get the best knowledge out of it.
I don't know if we are, because not everything on the internet. Like people say, well, Reddit's going up in stock price because the Gen AI engines are using Reddit. Anybody can write anything on Reddit.
Yes.
How does the LLM know what is accurate and what's not?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, even in Wikipedia, I think I read there was someone else tried to create another one where you had to be verified by someone before you could post something. Like to say, yes, Azim is an authentic, he knows code, and so whatever he writes, you should trust. There's got to get to some sort of trusted content model where the LLMs know they're using trusted content, you know?
Yeah.
And IBM, I think, is trying to do that. They train Granite, and what they perceived was filtered content, not every content.
Yeah. One of the things I saw at Gartner is recommending SaaS solutions and organizations. If you're building something in the generative AI space or talking to a SaaS solution, make sure you ask them if there is any accuracy score in the response that it generates. So the person who looks at the solution will get an understanding of how accurate that information is.
What is the biggest misconception about AI that you encounter? Well, I think the biggest thing is people are confusing Gen AI and AI.
Okay.
That's a big confusion. I think it's a misconception a little bit.
AI taking over your job?
Yeah, I'd say people think AI will take over your job. I think artificial intelligence was the wrong word from the beginning. Should have been augmented intelligence.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think of it as Jarvis from Iron Man. Like, I want somebody always there coaching me, counseling me, asking me. I can ask a question. I may not take what it does. I may accept it, but at least I've got someone that I can ask a question to. I've used it in that mode. I wrote an email to my boss and I was a little upset. And I asked him before I sent it, I'm like, what do you think? He's like, your tone seems a little defensive. You might want to change it. I'm like, hey, right. Just to have someone else like kind of give you a little coaching would be good. So I don't think it'll replace everybody's job, but there's a saying that AI won't replace your job, but someone who's using AI. Yeah. So
there is another cool feature on Teams, Mike. When you record or when you are in a call, it basically understands your voice and tells you your pitch is high here. You should have gone a little lower here. You're using too many filler words. I use a lot of like. Every time when I see my feedback, I no longer use the word like. So it's actually helping me better speaker in Teams.
A lot of people use the word right? And so if someone's always reminding you, it starts to click, right?
Yeah. What was your first interaction or experience with AI? Several years ago, when I was doing hackathons, I got to know about sentiment analysis. So there is an IBM API at the time. You throw a bunch of paragraphs and it will tell you what type of sentiment. Are you happy? Are you sad? That's my first experience with AI.
Yeah, so mine, I mean, it goes back to, getting my master's degree in AI. So we were doing a lot of work with neural networks. And so the first job, when I got out, I was early with KeyBank. My first tour at Key was we were working with the trading floor, and some of the traders, there were some, small neural network models that you could run, and they wanted to know if we could use the neural net to trade foreign exchange and beat their traders. Okay, so we said, all right, give us 3 years of history of foreign exchange trades and pricing. We'll train the neural net on 2 years, and we'll run blind on 1.
Okay,
and we wanted to know, like we said, well, give us your performance. They wouldn't. They didn't want to tell us if we beat them or not.
Wow.
And so we trained the model on 2 years, ran it on 1. And what the model figured out, which was interesting, was it wasn't about making a lot of bets. It was about making big bets when you felt strong.
Okay.
And I think it did outperform them, but they didn't that was when they were afraid that they would lose their job to AI. And I think a lot of hedge funds and Wall Street uses models, up and down and bet up and down based on models, which is why so many charts move, up and down, because they're betting up and down. So that was my first experience to kind of neural net and AI. Gen AI was when it first came out, and you just started asking it questions. And you're like, well, this is interesting. Like, I think everybody just who had, wanted to download ChatGPT and test it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How can we ensure AI is developed and used responsibly?
I think that in the industry, I think that's hard. I think certain regulatory bodies are trying to do it. I mean, here at Key, we have a committee that includes legal, model risk governance, compliance, line of business leaders, to try to look at that. But I think responsibly is the key word there, right? What does that mean, right? And I think it's, are you using it in a way that is not biased, doesn't create bias, doesn't use bias in its output. And so a lot of, I think what people are moving towards is grounding, which is like, okay, I'm going to control the input, and therefore I know it's not biased. I'm hoping I proved it's not biased, and therefore the hallucinations and the bias coming out. But I think there's there's a lot to be said for that. I remember when Tesla first came out, I heard the head of AI for Tesla speak. It was interesting because he's like, someone's got a code. I mean, because the car's driving, like, okay, I got a car coming at me, and I got a choice. Do I hit the moving car or do I hit a stationary tree? Well, the tree's not moving, so if a car's coming in at 50 miles an hour, better to hit a stationary object than a moving object. So that's going to get coded in the machine learning, in the pattern and everything. What if it's a deer or a tree?
Yeah.
Maybe the deer. What if it's a deer or a person? I hit the deer.
Dear.
What if it's a 70-year-old person and a 6-year-old person? The 70-year-old's had a good life.
Yes.
Someone's coding that.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, someone's got to decide if that's fair. Right.
Yeah.
That struck me always when they told me that. I'm like, it's scary that someone is going to write code that says your life is worth more than my life.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just in, like, think about that in auto driving, but that'll apply everywhere. Someone's going to make a choice and put in the model.
Yeah.
Awaiting. And how do you make sure that's equitable, and who's more else?
Yes.
I mean, the world has different views on things across perspectives. So is it a U.S. view? Is it a China view? Is it a Russia view? Is it an Indian view? Who's going to code that? That's a tough question.
All right, Mike, you want to do one more?
One more. What's the most unusual place you've taken a meeting? Right now, this is the most unusual meeting I've had, being recorded by Azim in my office.
Thank you so much, Mike, for taking time on doing this.
I appreciate you doing it and sharing our wisdom with people.
Thank you so much.